Is it possible to make a change against an oppressive government without the use of force? Peacefully dismantling apartheid and installing a multiracial democracy? Bringing forth a change so strong that the person who led the transition to be considered the father of modern South Africa? Discover the world-famous human rights activist who became South Africa's first black president. Nelson Mandela was a South African revolutionary and politician who is most famous for fighting against institutionalized discrimination against blacks in his country, known as apartheid. You have most definitely heard his name, Nelson Mandela, before. But have you ever known how influential he really is to South Africa? How can a story of struggle and perseverance inspire you to also make a change? Take his journey from being a prisoner to president and learn how to persevere despite the difficulties of life. This inspiring story of Nelson Mandela will leave you inspired to never lose your hope, to give up, and untapping your potential. Welcome to Untapping Your Potential, where we will share with you motivational stories, motivational figures, comeback stories, and public speaking tips that will keep you growing and inspire you to take action. Rolihlahla Mandela was born in Madiba clan in the village of Mesville in the Eastern Cape of July 18, 1918. His mother, Nankafi Noskini, and his father, Nkosi Fakinyuwi Mandela, principal counselor to the acting king of the Tembu people, Jongitava Daliyembo. He was the first person in his family to attend school. He attended primary school in Kitnu, where his teacher, Miss Ningane, gave him the name Nelson, in accordance to the custom of giving all school children Christian names. The name Nelson stuck to him, and in 1930, when he was 12 years old, his father died, and the young Nelson became a ward of Jongitaba at the Great Place in Meskewini. Despite losing his father, he continued to study more and earned his first degree, a Bachelor's of Arts, through UNISA in 1942. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Now, growing up wasn't very smooth though. There was a huge racial divide in South Africa. White authorities handled the country, and they generally led privileged lives with better facilities. On the other hand, most Native Africans worked in low-paid jobs and lived in poor communities with poor facilities and weren't even allowed to vote in elections. Nelson was very upset by this discrimination and decided to take a stand against it. So in 1944, he joined the African National Congress, ANC, a political group that strived for equal rights for everyone. Mandela, while increasingly politically involved from 1942, only joined the African National Congress in 1944 when he helped to form the ANC Youth League, ANCYL. Mandela rose to the ranks of the ANCYL, and through its efforts, the ANC adopted a more radical mass-based policy, the Program of Action, in 1949. He strongly believed that a fundamental concern for others in our individual and community lives would go a long way in making the world the better place we so passionately dreamed of. However, his worries didn't end with just the existing racism in his country. A new strict law called apartheid appeared. It meant that they weren't allowed to live in the same areas as whites, share a table in a restaurant, attend the same schools, or even sit together on a train or bus. So Nelson, who was very inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's struggle for freedom in India, adopted a non-violent movement to protest against the racial law. Everyone can rise above their circumstances and achieve success if they are dedicated to and passionate about what they do. And passionate he was. Defiance of apartheid had started peacefully, but Mandela now believed that armed struggle was the only way forward. He and others formed an armed resistance group called Umkhonto weSizwe, Spear of the Nation, also known as MK. Mandela spent 17 months underground trying to gain support from the armed struggle, but was arrested in 1962. Then in 1963, Mandela was put on trial for a number of charges. Unfortunately, the regime came to know about it one way or another. He and 7 of his colleagues were sentenced to life in prison. Nelson would spend the next 27 years behind bars. However, he never gave up on his principles despite being offered freedom twice. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and achieve, but if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. He spent 27 years in prison for opposing South Africa's apartheid system. He faced harsh conditions meant to break his resolve, but Nelson refused to give up his efforts to achieve for equality for all people. With time, Nelson's struggle for equality gained more popularity and support from around the world, and due to an increase in political and public pressure, he was released early from prison in 1990. Due to his protests, the native Africans were finally allowed to vote, and Nelson Mandela became South Africa's first black president. Now let me ask you, what would you do in his shoes? Like the whole world's against you. But it shows that you shouldn't be discouraged by difficulties. It always seems impossible until it's done. He was loved and admired all over the world. He profiled in books and movies and showered with awards and accolades. But even the most public of personalities have little known facts buried in their biographies. Here are a few facts you should know about Nelson Mandela. 1. Mandela was a leading opponent in the 1948 apartheid legislation. 2. He co-founded the first black legal partnership in South Africa. 3. His speech during the Redefining trial is considered one of the greatest speeches of the 20th century. 4. Nelson Mandela played the leading role in ending apartheid. 5. Nelson Mandela was the first black president of South Africa. 6. He focused on national reconciliation during his presidency. 7. He served as the Secretary General of a non-aligned movement from 1998 to 1999. 8. He founded a number of organizations to promote equality and fight problems like AIDS. And 9. Nelson Mandela was awarded the 1993 Nobel Peace Prize. As Nelson Mandela once said, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others." There was no magic. There was only strong will to never lose hope despite the difficulties being thrown your way. He is known as one of the peaceful freedom fighters of our time. Nelson Mandela continues to be a defining symbol of how one man can truly make a difference in this world. In the long and cruel battle to achieve this, he has taught us some invaluable life lessons. Like, how should you never give up? Because you have the power to make your dreams come true. By believing in your dreams and taking action to achieve them, you are doing better. In fact, you're doing the best. You can set yourself up for success and reach the place you want to be. A winner is a dreamer who never gives up. Another lesson you should get from Nelson is that whether in politics or in relationships, compromising and negotiations are essential tools. Learn how to give and take. If you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to work with your enemy. Then he becomes your partner. And lastly, another takeaway from Nelson would have to be the unconquerable spirit. At the Redefining trial, there was a risk that Mandela might be sentenced to death. He was so determined that he persuaded his comrades that they would not appeal. He urged them to have dignity and pride and to be steadfast. Mandela's approach to life when he finally retired was tread softly, breathe peacefully, and laugh hysterically. Thanks for watching this video. How would you like to hear more motivational stories on a consistent basis? Do me a favor, support the channel by sharing, commenting below, and please make sure to like and hit the subscribe button to get the latest updates. Soon you will be on your way to feeling inspired.